Do you have any Beatles collector's items?
Yeah, I recently bought a Beatles lunchbox on eBay.
Really?
How much?
Why do you want to buy it for me?
Maybe later.
Yeah.
But I'm asking because what we're getting into today makes a lunchbox look like, well, loose change.
Oh, it's on a completely different level, a different planet, really.
Exactly. We're looking at the legendary Jim Irsay collection, which is heading to auction this March. And this isn't just, any old sale.
No. It's being billed as the single biggest, most valuable collection of rock memorabilia ever put together.
We're talking about priceless Beatles artifacts that could fetch tens of millions of dollars.
It's a truly extraordinary event, and I think what we should do is, well, use this collection as a kind of lens.
A lens for what, exactly? To trace the entire history of the band through these objects. I mean, it's a tangible timeline of their whole creative life.
Right, from the early mop-top days.
Straight through their most experimental phase, with albums like Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, and then all the way to the end.
To the painful, legally documented end of the band.
Yep, it's all there.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we even get to the instruments, we have to talk about the man himself, Jim Irsay. He inherited the Indianapolis Colts, back in 1997?
That's right. But it's really his passion for collecting that turned him into this unlikely cultural preservationist.
And that's the key, isn't it? His whole philosophy.
It's crucial. He always insisted he was not an owner. He saw himself as a steward.
A steward. I like that.
His role, as he saw it, was just to preserve these treasures and, more importantly, to share them with the public. A lot of the stuff was constantly on tour.
And the sheer scope of this collection is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. The whole thing was valued at over $1 billion at one point.
$1 billion, an
Yeah.
offer he famously turned down. He wanted to keep it all together for people to see.
It just speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not about assets in the traditional sense.
No, these are pieces of our shared heritage. And it goes way beyond the Beatles, too. We're talking instruments owned by, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, Eddie Van Halen.
David Gilmour.
And it wasn't even just music. He was clearly looking for things that marked these huge cultural turning points.
Like what?
Well, his first big purchase, back in 2001, was Jack Kerouac's original scroll for On the Road, the 120-foot one.
Wow.
And then you've got Muhammad Ali's Rumble in the Jungle championship belt. I mean, these are items that define moments in literature, sports, and music.
Which brings us to why this is all happening now. The auction was organized by his 3 daughters, and they framed it as a way to honor his wishes. A big portion of the money is going to philanthropic causes he cared about.
Especially mental health awareness initiatives, right?
Exactly. So the value of the artifacts is now being channeled directly into his humanitarian legacy. That's a really meaningful way to do it.
Okay.
Let's jump into the Beatles artifacts. We have to start where it all began for America.
Ringo Starr.
Ringo and his drums. Some of these kits are estimated to go for up to $2 million.
And maybe the single most iconic piece is that original Ludwig bass drumhead.
With the Drop T logo, of course.
The very one used on the Ed Sullivan Show, February 9th, 1964.
73 million people were watching. 73 million. It was like a cultural atom bomb going off.
And that logo is right there in the middle of it. The commercial fallout from that one shot is just astounding.
You mean for Ludwig?
Oh, absolutely. Before that, drum making was kind of all over the place. That one show with that logo so prominent, it made Ludwig the dominant name in North America, literally overnight.
It's incredible. It shows how they went from being this scrappy band to a global force that could move markets.
And that power informed the gear they got. Which brings us to the actual drum kit, his first Ludwig downbeat kit.
The oyster black pearl finish.
That's the one. Bought in spring '63, it was used on hundreds of live shows and a ton of their early hits.
And there's a story behind that purchase too, isn't there?
There is. Their manager, Brian Epstein, he negotiated a trade. Ringo gave up his old Premier kit.
And the shop, Drum City, threw in the painted bass drum with the logo as part of the deal.
Exactly. It was a sign of their new status. They were demanding professional, American-made gear.
Okay, here's a detail I love because it connects things even after the breakup. There's also Ringo's 1964 Ludwig Jazz Festival snare drum.
The one he bought in Manhattan on that first trip?
Yeah, and get this. Paul McCartney borrowed that exact snare drum to record his first solo album in 1970.
No No way! That's incredible.
It shows how intertwined their sounds were, even as everything else was falling apart.
Wow. And just to round out the Ringo section, there's also something much more personal.
The ring.
His 9-carat gold and sapphire pinky ring, he wore it all the time, from 61 all the way through 69. It was just, part of his look.
Yeah, a lovely little piece of history. But now let's shift gears, right? From the mop-tops to the studio wizards.
The Revolver and Sgt. Pepper years. This is all about the guitars of John and George.
Let's start with George Harrison's 1964 Gibson SG Standard. That cherry red one.
His main guitar for that whole experimental phase, 66 to 69.
Why the SG, though? What did it give him?
It was a heavier, solid body guitar. It gave him the kind of sustain and distortion he was looking for. He was pushing past that cleaner Rickenbacker sound.
It was the sound of the psychedelic era.
It really was. If you listen to She Said, or Taxman, Dr. Robert, that's the sound of this guitar.
It was also in the promo films for Paperback Writer and Rain, and he used it at their last official UK concert.
And here's a great crossover fact. John Lennon also used that same Gibson SG during the White Album sessions.
On which song?
Most famously on While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So that one instrument links 2 of their most important albums.
That's amazing. Now over to John, his 1963 Gretsch 6120.
The Western Orange one, he used that a ton during the Paperback Writer and Rain sessions in April '66, right at Abbey Road.
So what's the aha moment here? How do they know for sure it's the guitar?
This is where it gets really cool. The authentication was, well, basically forensic. The wood grain on the headstock is completely unique.
Like a fingerprint.
Exactly like a fingerprint. They can match it precisely to high-res photos from those recording sessions. There's just no doubt.
That's incredible, using the wood itself to prove its history. And then there's the story of how he just gave it away.
Oh, yeah. In '67, his cousin David Birch was visiting.
And Birch wanted a Fender Stratocaster.
Right. And Lennon just gave him the Gretsch instead. Just a casual, incredibly generous gift. Irsay eventually got it for about $530,000.
And we can't talk about that era without mentioning the piano.
The 1869 John Broadwood and Sons upright. That piano lived in Lennon's house, and it's where he worked out a lot of the songs for Sgt. Pepper.
The very foundation of their most ambitious album was sketched out on that old piano. Which brings us to composition, and to Paul, and really the final sad chapter of the band.
You're talking about the Hey Jude lyrics.
The handwritten studio lyrics from 1968. This wasn't a copy. It was the actual sheet he used in the studio at Trident.
And what makes it so valuable, or talking up to $1 million, is the annotations.
The working notes.
Yeah, you can see line numbers, a word break, and little technical notes like ending, fading. It's the raw blueprint for one of rock's greatest anthems.
An anthem Paul wrote to comfort Julian Lennon, which leads to the ultimate piece of heartache memorabilia.
The affidavit.
McCartney's 1970 affidavit to dissolve the Beatles.
And that document, its estimate is maybe $150,000, but the emotional weight...
It's heavier than any guitar.
It's the piece of paper that made the end official. It's what started all the bitter legal fights. And it even has handwritten notes on it from John.
Just brutal. And to round out the Paul items, there's his '79 Yamaha BB1200 bass guitar and a modern Hufner bass signed by him.
And don't forget the weird stuff, like the umpire's locker from Shea Stadium in '65.
The very first stadium rock concert. Imagine being in that little locker backstage with all that chaos outside.
Incredible.
But before we wrap up, we should step back for a second, because the reason Irsay collected these things, it's the same philosophy that applies to all the other instruments in the auction.
He was looking for things that caused cultural shockwaves, right?
Exactly, which is so clear when you look at the single highest-priced item in the whole auction.
Kurt Cobain's guitar.
His 1966 Fender Mustang, used on Nevermind, In Utero, and in the Smells Like Teen Spirit video. The estimate is $2.5 to $5 million.
And Irsay paid $6 million for it in 2022, with a lot of that money benefiting mental health awareness. It's all part of that stewardship idea.
Then you have David Gilmour's Black Strat.
$2 to $4 million. That guitar basically is the sound of albums like The Dark Side of the Moon.
It's the one he played the solo on Comfortably Numb with.
And then there's Bob Dylan's '64 Stratocaster from the Newport Folk Festival, the moment he went electric.
All of these instruments represent these massive pivots in music.
And it all started for Irsay in 2002 with Jerry Garcia's Tiger guitar.
The last guitar Garcia ever played with the Grateful Dead. That was the seed for this whole billion-dollar vision.
So when you look at the whole Beatles part of the auction, from Ringo's first drumhead to that final legal document.
It's not just a bunch of stuff, it's a story.
It's a complete, tangible narrative of the greatest band in history. You start with the innocence, the drumhead seen by 73 million people, and you end with the cold handwriting on a legal form.
So what does this all mean? I think it comes right back to Irsay's philosophy. He used to say that nobody takes their stuff with them when they go.
Right, and these items are our shared heritage, so the people who buy these things, they aren't just owners.
They're the next generation of guardians.
Exactly, they're taking on the duty of stewardship. It makes you think, what part of our culture are you responsible for preserving?
Well, thanks for joining us today. Whenever you feel like knowing more about the Beatles, visit us at BeatlesRewind.com. Every day, we do something new there. Song reviews, album reviews, movie reviews, book reviews, documentaries, trivia, all things Beatles, every day, 8 days a week. You can find us on the website, BeatlesRewind.com. You can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Podcasts, practically anywhere on the inner tubes, the Beatles, all day, every day. So, we'll do it again tomorrow.
All right, always.
Until next time, when you listen.
Your mind conducts its own symphony.